single dad trailed a poor, paralyzed girl who always asked for the diner's leftovers. He uncovered a secret so profound it challenged his understanding of strength, survival, and love. Two wounded souls, one incredible discovery, and a truth proving that the world's forgotten often emerge as its most remarkable heroes. Before we move on, let us know where you're watching from. We're always amazed by how far our stories reach. The headlights of Theo Johnson's pickup sliced through the dark November night as he kept his distance, observing the woman in the wheelchair steadily moving along West 25th Street. His grip on the steering wheel tightened unnecessarily, his knuckles white against the worn leather. What exactly was he doing? Following someone felt intrusive, wrong, a violation of the boundaries he usually respected. Yet something deep inside wouldn't allow him to just drive away. Not tonight. Especially not after seeing how drained Vanessa looked when she finally returned to his diner after being gone for 3 consecutive Tuesdays. 3 long weeks filled with worry. 3 weeks spent wondering if she was all right, if she was eating, if she was even still alive. As Vanessa turned left onto a side street, the wheels of her wheelchair caught the glow of a street lamp. Theo slowed his truck, maintaining a safe distance. For almost 2 months, he had been giving her leftover food from his diner every Tuesday evening. It started simply with a container of meatloaf and vegetables, food that would otherwise go to waste. But somewhere along the line, those Tuesday encounters had evolved into something more than just charity. They had transformed into conversations, glimpses into a life that had been shattered 3 years prior on I-90 when a drunk driver crossed the median, destroying everything Vanessa had worked so hard for. She had been a nurse at Metro Hospital, with dreams of pursuing her master's degree, a fiancé, a promising career, a bright future. The accident took away her legs and, in some ways even more devastating, it took everything else as well. Her fiancé left. Her savings vanished, swallowed up by medical bills. Her career came to an abrupt end. And Vanessa, once proud, intelligent, and kind, was left to fend for herself, surviving on a disability check that barely covered the rent for a small studio apartment located 15 blocks east of his diner. 15 blocks she navigated every Tuesday, simply to ask for leftovers. Theo's chest tightened as he watched her skillfully navigate a broken sidewalk. The neighborhood was rapidly declining around her. Windows boarded up, walls covered in graffiti, abandoned lots where businesses once thrived. This was not the Cleveland he wanted anyone to pass through after dark, especially a woman alone in a wheelchair. Where could she possibly be going? As he followed her, he couldn't help but think about his own losses. Laura's face flashed through his mind. Her radiant smile the morning she kissed him goodbye before that fateful drive on Route 90. The distracted driver who had veered into her lane on a rainy October evening 3 years ago. The phone call that had shattered his world and left him as both father and mother to 7-year-old Trevor. Maybe that's why he felt so strongly for Vanessa. They were both survivors of the same treacherous stretch of highway. Both left behind, struggling to figure out how to keep breathing when the person they thought they were supposed to be had perished along with their dreams. The diner had been Laura's vision. A cozy neighborhood spot where everyone knew your name and your favorite breakfast order. Keeping it alive meant working 16-hour days while Trevor stayed with his sister across town. It meant a bone-deep exhaustion that never seemed to fade. It meant a loneliness that lingered constantly. But it also meant honoring her memory. And somehow, giving food to Vanessa every Tuesday had begun to feel like part of that tribute. As if Laura would have wanted him to see the people others overlooked, to help those silently struggling. Vanessa turned down an alley, and Theo's concern escalated. He parked his truck, turned off the engine, and proceeded on foot. His work boots moved silently against the cracked pavement as he walked through shadows that reeked of decay and neglect. The alley opened into a lot dominated by an old warehouse, its windows dark and lifeless, weeds sprouting through cracks in the concrete foundation. It appeared abandoned, a place the city had forgotten, left to rot while developers bickered over the land's future. Vanessa rolled up to a side door and knocked twice. Sharp, deliberate sounds that echoed in the cold air. She was meeting someone. But who and why here? Theo's mind raced through possible scenarios, none of them good. Was she in danger? Was someone taking advantage of her vulnerability? Had she become involved in something dangerous just to survive? The door opened just a crack at first, then wider. Vanessa spoke softly, too quietly for Theo to hear, and then she was inside, the door closing behind her with a heavy, metallic sound. Theo stood frozen, torn between respecting her privacy and an overwhelming need to ensure her safety. 5 minutes passed, then 10. The warehouse remained dark and silent from the outside, revealing nothing. He couldn't just leave. Not now. Theo approached the door and tested the handle. Turned easily. It was unlocked. He pushed it open slowly, wincing at the slight creak of hinges that probably hadn't been oiled in years. Inside, he was initially met with darkness. Then, as his eyes began to adjust, he noticed the soft glow of battery-powered lanterns scattered throughout the space, creating pools of warm light amidst the shadows. And then he saw something that stopped him in his tracks. The warehouse wasn't abandoned at all. It had been transformed. Makeshift beds lined the walls. Old mattresses placed on wooden pallets, covered with clean sheets and actual pillows. Medical supplies were neatly organized on shelves made from cinder blocks and plywood. A table in the corner held boxes of bandages, bottles of medication, rolls of gauze. Everything was neat, orderly, purposeful, and everywhere, sitting on beds, standing in a line near the back wall, or lying down while being examined, were homeless people. At least 20 of them, maybe more. Men and women of all ages, their faces weathered by life on the streets, but their expressions holding something Theo hadn't expected to see, hope. And in the center of it all, moving between patients with focused determination, was Vanessa. She was still in her wheelchair, but she had transformed into someone else entirely. A stethoscope hung around her neck. A blood pressure cuff rested in her lap. She was listening to an elderly man's chest, her face concentrated and professional. "Take deep breaths for me, Mr. Harrison. That's good. Hold it. Now breathe out slowly." She moved the stethoscope to different positions on his back, listening intently. "Your lungs sound much better than last week. The congestion is clearing up. Keep taking those antibiotics I gave you, okay? All of them, even after you start feeling better." The elderly man nodded, relief evident on his weathered face. "Thank you, Miss Vanessa. I don't know what I'd do without you. You'd be just fine, Mr. Harrison, but I'm glad I can help." A younger woman approached, anxiety etched across her features. She held the hand of a little girl who couldn't have been more than 5 years old. "Miss Vanessa, my daughter's rash isn't getting better. I'm scared it might be infected." "Let me see her right away," Vanessa said immediately, wheeling toward them. "Come here, sweetheart. I'm going to take a look at your arm. Okay. I promise to be gentle." Theo stood motionless near the door, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. This couldn't be possible. This couldn't be real. Vanessa, the woman who came to his diner every Tuesday asking for leftovers, the woman who looked exhausted and thin, the woman barely surviving on disability payments, was running a medical clinic for homeless people. A man in his 50s noticed Theo and approached with a defensive posture. His clothes were clean but worn, his eyes sharp with protective instinct. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice low but firm. "How did you find this place?" Before Theo could answer, Vanessa looked up from examining the little girl's rash. Her eyes widened when she saw him standing there. The color drained from her face, then rushed back in a deep flush. "Theo, I can explain." "How long?" Theo asked quietly, moving closer. His voice came out steadier than he felt. "How long have you been doing this?" Vanessa's shoulders sagged. She finished applying antibiotic ointment to the child's arm and gently bandaged it, then wheeled slowly toward him. The other people in the warehouse watched with curiosity and concern. 8 months, maybe 9. I lose track sometimes. 9 months, Theo repeated. His mind was reeling. "You've been running a medical clinic for 9 months while asking me for food. It is not what you think." "Well, actually, maybe it is exactly what you think. I don't know anymore." The defensive man stepped closer. "Miss Vanessa doesn't have to explain herself to you or anyone else. She's saved lives here. My life. If you've got a problem with what she's doing, Marcus, it's okay. Vanessa interrupted gently. She looked at Theo with exhaustion, resignation, and something else. Maybe shame. He deserves to know. He's been helping me for weeks without knowing what I was doing with that help. She gestured for Theo to follow her to a quieter corner of the warehouse, away from the patients. When they were alone, she took a deep breath. I was a nurse before the accident. You know that part. But what I didn't tell you is that I can't work in a hospital anymore. Not because I lost my license. I still have that, but because no hospital will hire someone in a wheelchair. They say it's not about disability discrimination, that it's about patient safety and liability. But the result is the same. I can't practice the profession I spent years training for. Her hands twisted in her lap, and Theo saw the tremor he'd noticed the last time she came to the diner. About 9 months ago, I was at a shelter volunteering, just trying to feel useful, and I met this veteran named Thomas. He had an infected wound on his leg that was getting worse by the day. The shelters don't have medical staff. The emergency rooms were turning him away because it wasn't immediately life-threatening, and he didn't have insurance or ID. He was going to lose that leg, maybe die from sepsis because nobody would help him. Vanessa's voice grew stronger, more passionate. So I treated him. I used the last of my grocery money to buy antibiotics from a pharmacist I'd worked with at Metro Hospital. He sold them to me under the table because he remembered me and knew I'd used them right. I cleaned Thomas's wound, started him on treatment, and monitored his progress for 2 weeks. And he got better? Theo asked. He got better? He got better, Vanessa confirmed. And then he told someone else, and that person told another person. And suddenly I had people finding me, asking if I could help them. People with diabetes who couldn't afford insulin. People with infections, with chronic pain, with illnesses that were manageable, but only if someone actually managed them. She looked around the warehouse with something like pride. I found this place about 6 months ago. The owner died, and his family is fighting over the estate. It's been tied up in legal battles. Abandoned. I figured out how to get in, and I started bringing people here, a few at a time at first. Then word spread further. And the food I've been giving you? Theo asked, though he already knew the answer. We have communal dinners every Tuesday night. Your leftovers have been feeding everyone here. The meatloaf, the pot roast, the vegetables. We divide everything equally. Nobody goes hungry on Tuesdays because of you. Theo looked at the makeshift beds, the organized supplies, the people who watched Vanessa with such trust and gratitude. Where do you get the medical supplies, the medications? My disability check, Vanessa said simply. It's $1,100 a month. My studio apartment rent is $650. That leaves $450. I spend about $100 on absolute necessities for myself. Food, utilities, toiletries. The other $350 goes to supplies. The pharmacist still helps me when he can. Some of the medications I get from free clinics that have extras. I've learned to improvise. You're spending almost everything you have on this, Theo said. It wasn't a question. What else am I going to spend it on? Vanessa's voice broke slightly. I have no life, Theo. No career, no family, no friends. After the accident, everyone disappeared. My fiancé said he couldn't handle being with someone in a wheelchair. My colleagues felt awkward around me. My family lives 2 states away, and we barely talk. I wake up every day in a tiny apartment with 4 walls that feel like a prison, knowing that I used to save lives and now I can't even save myself. Tears streamed down her face now, but her voice remained steady. So yeah, I spend everything I have on this because these people, she gestured to the patients around them. They see me. They need me. For the first time since the accident, I feel like I matter again, like I'm still a nurse, like my life has purpose. The vulnerability in her voice cracked something open in Theo's chest. He knelt down beside her wheelchair so they were at eye level. Vanessa, what you're doing here, keeping all these people alive, treating them with dignity when the system has failed them, you're not broken. You're one of the strongest people I've ever met. She shook her head. I'm just trying to survive. They're trying to survive. We help each other. How many people are you treating regularly? Theo asked. Tonight there are 23, but some come and go. I've probably treated 50 or 60 different people over the past months. Some just need one-time care. Others have chronic conditions I monitor weekly. Theo stood, his mind already working through possibilities. He thought about Laura and what she would say if she were here. He could almost hear her voice. The best way to heal your own pain is to ease someone else's. Okay, he said firmly. Here's what's going to happen. Vanessa looked up at him with confusion. What? You're not doing this alone anymore, Theo said. Give me your phone. I don't have a phone, Vanessa admitted. I couldn't afford the bill. Then use mine. Theo pulled out his cell phone and started dialing. I'm calling in every favor I have. The next few hours passed in a blur of phone calls and arrivals. His first call was to his late wife's sister, Rachel, who was a lawyer specializing in property rights and nonprofit law. She arrived within 30 minutes, her sharp eyes taking in the warehouse setup with professional assessment. This is remarkable, Rachel said after Vanessa explained everything. But it's also incredibly risky. If the property owners discover you're here, you could face trespassing charges. If something goes wrong medically, you could lose your nursing license and face liability. I know the risks, Vanessa said quietly. We need to legitimize this, Rachel said, already pulling out her laptop. I can help you form a non-profit organization. We can reach out to the property owners through legal channels, see if they'd be willing to lease the space for minimal cost or donate it as a tax write-off. We can get proper insurance, proper licensing, make this legal and sustainable. Theo's second call was to his friend Marcus, a different Marcus than the protective man in the warehouse, who ran a small nonprofit focused on food insecurity. Marcus arrived with promises of grant applications and connections to larger organizations that funded healthcare initiatives. This is exactly the kind of grassroots program that foundations love to support. You've got proven need, proven results, and a compelling story. I can help you apply for funding, not just for supplies, actual salaries. You should be paid for this work, Vanessa. I don't do this for money. I know, but you can't keep giving everything away and expect to survive. Sustainability matters. If you burn out or get sick or can't afford to continue, all these people lose their only healthcare access. Taking care of yourself is part of taking care of them. The third call went to Dr. Raymond, a regular at the diner who specialized in community medicine. He arrived looking skeptical but left looking odd. This is incredible work, Dr. Raymond said after examining Vanessa's setup and talking with several patients. You're doing everything right. Proper protocols, good hygiene, appropriate treatment decisions, but you're limited by being one person with limited supplies. What if we expanded this? I can volunteer time. I can recruit other doctors. We can turn this into a legitimate free clinic. People need to be able to come here without fear, Vanessa said firmly. No one asks for ID. No one asks about immigration status or criminal records or anything else. They just get care. That can't change. It won't, Dr. Raymond promised. We'll build around your model, not replace it. By midnight, the warehouse was full of people planning, strategizing, mobilizing. Rachel was drafting incorporation documents. Marcus was outlining fundraising strategies. Dr. Raymond was making calls to medical colleagues who might volunteer. Vanessa sat in her wheelchair in the corner, looking dazed as the operation she'd been running alone suddenly became everyone's mission. Theo brought her coffee from a thermos he'd grabbed from his truck and sat down beside her on an overturned crate. You should have asked for help, he said gently. I didn't think anyone would care. I'm just one person, a broken person. Why would anyone listen to me or take me seriously? Because what you're doing matters, Theo said. Because these people's lives matter. Because you matter. Vanessa turned to look at him, and something passed between them in that moment. A recognition of shared pain, shared purpose, shared hope for something better. Thank you, she said softly, for following me, for caring enough to find out the truth, for not just walking away. I couldn't walk away, Theo admitted. I've been worried about you for weeks, and now that I know what you're doing here, I'm not going anywhere. This diner of mine, it's going to become your permanent food supplier, every day, not just Tuesdays. Whatever leftovers we have, they come here, and I'll make sure we have plenty of leftovers. Theo, you don't have to. I want to, he interrupted. Laura, my wife who died, She always believed that the best way to honor pain was to prevent others from experiencing it. She would have loved what you're doing here. She would have been the first person to help. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching Rachel and Marcus and Dr. Raymond work, watching the patients settle in for the night on their makeshift beds, watching something impossible become possible. The transformation happened faster than anyone expected. Within 2 weeks, Rachel had successfully formed the Vanessa Free Clinic as a registered nonprofit. The property owners, moved by the story and enticed by the tax benefits, agreed to lease the warehouse for $1 per year with an option to donate the building outright after 3 years. Dr. Raymond recruited 4 other doctors and 6 nurses who committed to volunteer shifts. Local medical supply companies donated equipment after hearing about the clinic. A pharmacy chain agreed to provide medications at cost. Marcus secured a $50,000 grant from a foundation focused on innovative healthcare solutions. More grant applications were pending. The money paid for proper beds, improved sanitation, a generator for reliable electricity, and, over Vanessa's protests, a salary for her as clinic director. "You're running this place," Rachel said firmly when Vanessa tried to refuse payment. "You're working full-time hours managing patients, coordinating volunteers, ordering supplies. That deserves compensation. Take the salary. Buy yourself a phone. Eat regular meals. You can't pour from an empty cup." Theo expanded his diner's community outreach, preparing daily meals specifically for the clinic. He hired an extra cook to handle the increased volume. The food costs were manageable, and honestly, it felt good to be feeding people who desperately needed it. He found excuses to visit the warehouse, now officially the Vanessa Free Clinic, almost every day, bringing food, checking if they needed supplies, asking how he could help. And if those visits meant spending time talking with Vanessa, learning more about her, seeing her smile return as the clinic thrived, well, that was just a fortunate side effect. 3 months after the discovery, the clinic had treated over 200 people. Word had spread through the homeless community that there was a place they could go. No questions asked, no judgment, just care. Vanessa hired 2 part-time staff members to help manage intake and basic care. She brought in a social worker to help patients access other services. She established partnerships with mental health providers, addiction treatment centers, and housing programs. The warehouse that had been abandoned and forgotten became a beacon of hope. And Theo watched Vanessa transform along with it. The exhaustion faded from her face. She gained weight. Her hands stopped shaking. The darkness in her eyes lifted, replaced with purpose and pride and joy. She was beautiful. She'd always been beautiful. But now Theo could see the full force of who she was. Strong, brilliant, compassionate, determined. A woman who'd lost everything and had somehow found a way to give everything to others. He was falling in love with her. Might have already fallen. 6 months after discovering the warehouse, Theo and Vanessa developed a Tuesday evening ritual. After the clinic's communal dinner, now a proper meal served on actual tables with volunteers helping prepare and serve, they would sit outside on the loading dock, drinking coffee and talking as the Cleveland sky shifted from sunset to twilight. They talked about everything. Vanessa shared stories from her nursing school days, about the patients she'd cared for at Metro Hospital, about her family in Ohio, who she was slowly reconnecting with now that she felt like herself again. Theo told her about raising Trevor, about the guilt he carried over working so much, about Laura and the dreams they'd had for the diner. "You know what's funny?" Vanessa said one evening as they watched the sky turn shades of pink and gold. "When I lost my legs, I thought I'd lost everything that mattered. My entire identity was wrapped up in being a nurse, being independent, being whole." "You are whole," Theo said immediately. "I know that now, but it took me a long time to learn it. I spent a year feeling sorry for myself, angry at the world, convinced my life was over." She turned to face him, and the evening light caught in her blonde curly hair, making it glow. "But then I realized something. I was still a nurse. I was still me. The wheelchair didn't change that. Only my perspective changed. I had to find a different way to practice, a different way to help. But the core of who I am, that never changed." "What made you realize that?" Theo asked. "A veteran with an infected leg wound and nobody willing to help him. The moment I started treating Thomas, I felt like myself again for the first time. Since the accident, it was like I suddenly had a purpose, like I actually mattered. She hesitated for a moment, taking a deep breath to gather her courage. And then I met you, this incredibly stubborn diner owner who wouldn't just let me scrape by on next to nothing. You gave me food, but you did it with such genuine kindness. You talked to me like I was a real person instead of just some tragic figure, and you made me feel seen. Theo's heart was pounding in his chest. Vanessa, please, let me finish, she pleaded, her voice trembling ever so slightly. You gave me back so much more than just leftovers, Theo. You gave me back my dignity. You reminded me that I was worth seeing, worth caring about. And then you followed me, which, under normal circumstances, should have been totally creepy, but it was actually the bravest thing anyone has ever done for me, ever. And you saw what I was doing. And instead of judging me or thinking I was completely out of my mind, you helped me make it even bigger and even better. Tears were now streaming down her cheeks. You gave me back myself, and somewhere along the way, I completely fell in love with you. The words hung in the air between them, so precious and so fragile. Theo reached out and gently took her hand in his thumb lightly brushing across her knuckles. You did all of that yourself, Vanessa. I just paid attention. But I'm so incredibly glad I did, because somewhere along the way, I fell in love with you too. I what? Vanessa's voice was barely audible, just a whisper. I love you, Theo said, the words now coming much easier. I love your strength, your compassion, your stubbornness, the way you see the people that everyone else just seems to ignore. The way you turned your pain into a purpose instead of letting it completely destroy you. He moved closer to her, still holding her hand. I love the way you treat every single patient with such dignity. The way you laugh when one of the kids at the clinic tells a joke. The way you get this fierce look on your face whenever someone suggests that homeless people don't deserve access to quality health care. I love every single part of you, Vanessa. Even the parts that don't work? She asked, her vulnerability completely raw and exposed. Especially those parts, Theo said firmly. Because they taught you empathy. Because they put you on a path that led to helping hundreds and hundreds of people. Because they brought you to my diner asking for leftovers, and that's how I found you. He gently cupped her face in his hands. You're not broken, Vanessa. You're perfect. And if you'll have me, if you'll have us, because Trevor absolutely adores you, I'd like to spend the rest of my life proving that to you. Fresh tears streamed down Vanessa's cheeks, but she was smiling now, completely radiant and joyful. I love you too, Theo Johnson. I think I have for months now. Maybe since that very first Tuesday when you brought meatloaf and didn't make me feel ashamed for asking for it. When Theo kissed her, it was gentle and sure and completely full of promise. The Cleveland evening wrapped itself around them like a warm blessing. Two people who had been so broken finding wholeness in each other. Two hearts that had been shattered, learning to beat again in perfect sync. When they finally pulled apart from each other, both of them were smiling through their tears. So, Vanessa said, her voice shaky with emotion and a bit of laughter. What happens now? Now, Theo said, we figure out this life together. You, me, and Trevor. We keep running the clinic. We keep feeding people at the diner. We keep building something absolutely beautiful from all of these broken pieces. I like that plan, Vanessa whispered. They sat there together as the sky darkened and the stars began to appear. Their hands intertwined, their hearts completely full and grateful for Tuesday evenings and leftover meatloaf and the mysterious ways that love finds us when we're brave enough to follow wherever compassion leads. 1 year later, Vanessa officially moved into the apartment above Johnson's Corner Diner with Theo and Trevor. The space was definitely cramped, but it was perfect, filled with laughter and home-cooked meals, and the kind of wonderful chaos that only a real family can truly create. Trevor absolutely adored Vanessa. She helped him with his homework right there at the kitchen table, told him stories about her nursing adventures, and taught him all about compassion and resilience in ways that made him fully understand why his dad loved her so much. The Vanessa Free Clinic continued to thrive and flourish, expanding its services to include dental care, mental health counseling, and job placement assistance. It served over 500 people in its very first full year of operation. Vanessa was even featured in local news stories, recognized by the mayor, and invited to speak at healthcare conferences all about innovative community-based care. But her favorite part was still those Tuesday evening communal dinners when everyone gathered around tables absolutely loaded with food from Theo's diner and shared stories and laughter, and the simple dignity of enjoying a good meal with people who genuinely cared. Theo continued running the diner, but it had quickly become so much more than just a business. It was now a true community hub, a place where absolutely everyone belonged. The factory workers who came in for their dawn coffee, the elderly regulars who lingered over a slice of pie, the clinic volunteers who grabbed quick sandwiches between shifts, and the formerly homeless patients who stopped by just to update Vanessa on their progress. The diner's back wall now proudly featured photos of clinic patients who had enthusiastically agreed to share their incredible success stories. There was Thomas, the veteran, who had regained his health and finally found stable housing. There was the young mother whose daughter's terrible rash had completely healed, and who now volunteered at the clinic herself. And there was Mr. Harrison, whose lungs had cleared up, and who now led a weekly support group. Every single photo served as a constant reminder that paying attention truly matters. That simply following your instincts when you sense that someone is in need of help can completely change everything. That love often begins with simple kindness. On Tuesday evenings, after the dinner rush had finally ended and the clinic had quieted down for the night, Theo and Vanessa still kept their special ritual alive. Coffee on the loading dock, watching the sky slowly shift its colors, and just talking about their day. Sometimes Trevor would even join them, sitting right there between them, asking a million questions about the stars or the patients or when he might finally get a baby brother or sister. Soon, Vanessa would always say, exchanging a private, knowing smile with Theo, maybe soon. Those evenings were truly precious moments of peace and contentment in lives that had once been so strongly defined by loss and struggle. Do you ever think about how we actually found each other? Vanessa asked one Tuesday evening as the sunset painted Cleveland in vibrant shades of orange and purple. All the time, Theo admitted, I followed you because I was worried about you. I never could have imagined that I'd discover someone running a secret medical clinic in an abandoned warehouse. And I never imagined that simply asking for leftovers would somehow lead to me falling in love with the very man giving them to me, Vanessa said. She leaned her head against his shoulder. We're quite a pair, aren't we? Both of us broken by the exact same highway. Both of us trying to honor the lives we lost by selflessly helping others. Not broken anymore, Theo said firmly. He kissed the top of her head. Healed whole together. Together, Vanessa echoed. And the word felt like a sacred promise. Sometimes the most profound discoveries come from truly paying attention to the people that the world tends to overlook. Sometimes heroism doesn't look anything like we expect it to. It looks like a woman in a wheelchair treating forgotten people in a warehouse and a grieving father brave enough to follow his heart wherever it leads. Theo and Vanessa's incredible story reminds us that endings can truly become new beginnings, that loss can ultimately lead to love. That the very strongest hearts are often the ones that have been shattered and then beautifully reformed. That sometimes simply following someone who asks for leftovers leads you to discover the future that you didn't even know you were searching for. The diner's neon sign flickered on as evening settled over Cleveland. Inside, a family gathered around a table, sharing a meal and laughter. Outside, a clinic full of patients rested safely, knowing deep down that they truly mattered. And on the loading dock, two people who had found each other through compassion and courage watched the stars begin to emerge in the darkening sky. They were eternally grateful for second chances, grateful for Tuesday evenings, and grateful for the mysterious and beautiful ways that love finds us when we're brave enough to follow wherever it may lead. Thank you so much for watching this story. If it moved you in any way, please like, comment, and subscribe to Everbell Stories for even more tales that remind us of the extraordinary beauty that exists in humanity. What would you have done if you were in Theo's place? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, always remember, the most extraordinary people are often the very ones that the world has completely forgotten. Don't forget to see them.